BRICS alliance has undergone a significant transformation. What began as a Goldman Sachs coinage, a shorthand for Brazil, Russia, India, and China's burgeoning economies, has now become BRICS Plus, a sprawling group encompassing 10 full members and a growing list of partner states. Beyond the acronym, BRICS Plus represents a complex interplay of ambition, opportunity, and geopolitical calculation. With new members like Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, and the UAE, the alliance seeks to amplify its global voice. But is this expansion a sign of strength, or does it introduce new fractures? Enter Trump's trade war.
So, if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So, 67%.
His reciprocal tariffs, 10% on all, up to 50% on dozens, hit BRICS Plus hard. China faces a crushing 245% tariff for fighting back, sparking global chaos.
China is now hitting back, retaliating against the Trump tariffs, announcing this morning it is now slapping a reciprocal 34% tariff on all U.S. goods.
Can BRICS Plus forge a new world order? Or will Trump's unpredictable tariffs and internal rifts fracture this alliance? Dive in with us, share your take below. The BRICS story begins not in the halls of international diplomacy, but in the pages of a Goldman Sachs research paper. Economist Jim O'Neill coined the term BRIC in 2001, identifying Brazil, Russia, India, and China as emerging markets with the potential to reshape the global economy. Early BRICS summits focused on economic cooperation and reforming international financial institutions.
India, Russia, China, Brazil, and South Africa form one of the world's most important economic blocs. The BRICS summit in South Africa will seek to widen its influence and push for a shift in global geopolitics.
The goal was to create a more level playing field for developing nations. It's worth noting that the origins of a multipolar world order can be traced back to Yevgeny Primakov, Russia's prime minister, who advocated for a trilateral format with India and China in the 1990s. However, O'Neill himself has since become a vocal critic of the BRICS project. In a 2021 article, he argued that the BRICS countries have failed to unite as a meaningful global force, serving no real purpose beyond generating symbolic gestures, a stark assessment that we need to consider critically. Donald Trump's trade war with China had a profound impact on the global economy. Tariffs disrupted supply chains, increased costs for businesses and consumers, and led to retaliatory measures. But what was the impact on the BRICS nations?
They said, sir, what about the BRICS states? They're going to take over the dollar, the sanctity of the dollar. They're going to create a new currency to rule the world. I said, no, they're not. Tell them 150% tariff.
Data shows that while U.S.-China trade declined, some BRICS members, particularly Brazil and Russia, saw increased trade with China, filling the void left by American exports. This suggests that Trump's policies may have inadvertently strengthened intra-BRICS economic ties, at least in the short term. Though with a question of ethical issue, the prospect of a second Trump presidency brings with it the threat of even more aggressive trade policies. His promise to impose 100% tariffs on countries that abandon the dollar has sent a clear message to BRICS nations seeking to de-dollarize their economies.
President-elect Trump is vowing to impose 100% tariffs on BRICS nations unless they commit to not developing a new currency.
How might BRICS nations respond? One possibility is to double down on efforts to create alternative financial systems, such as a BRICS currency, despite the risks.
BRICS Pay, touted as an alternative to the US dollar, has the potential to revolutionize global finance by allowing BRICS nations to make cross-border payments more efficiently using their own currencies.
However, the U.S. has at times downplayed the threat of BRICS. The U.S. Treasury Secretary has dismissed BRICS efforts at de-dollarization and even described the BRICS as no serious challenge.
BRICS is dead since I mentioned that. BRICS died the minute I mentioned that.
Is this confidence warranted, or is it a strategic underestimation? BRICS Plus collectively represents a significant portion of the global economy. Their combined GDP, measured in purchasing power parity, is $26.7 trillion compared to the G7's $48.68 trillion. However, this aggregate number masks a significant disparity. China accounts for approximately 70% of BRICS Plus's total GDP. The big question is, with such a high GDP, the yuan should dominate in the trade with about 47% only.
But 20 years on, the group has really failed to live up to its authors' expectations. Well, most of them. Take a look at this. Just on GDP basis, China has stormed ahead with cumulative growth of almost 1,000% since 2001.
BRICS Plus leaders are united in their call for a more multipolar world order, one that challenges the dominance of Western-led institutions like the UN Security Council and the IMF.
I want to just ask you, like, point blank, BRICS, is it a real new thing that's going to challenge the American global order, or is it still an illusion?
Well, the short answer to your question is it's a real thing, not an illusion. It's already challenged the order that was dominated by the United States.
И впервые там об этом заговорил. Ну, конечно, это такой глобальный подход к истории человечества.
将举办第3届“一带一路”国际合作高峰论坛，世界文明进步新篇章。
आज मल्टीपोलर वर्ल्ड है, आज दुनिया का हर देश इंटरडिपेंडेंट है.
The views on BRICS have been fairly mixed, but heavily weighted on negative on Western media.
I mean, if you look at BRICS, it's a completely different organization, it has a completely different level of integration, cooperation, etc. It's composed of countries who have also many different own interests, not always aligned with each other.
Proposals for our relations with the BRICS countries. It's time for us to wake up. However, I'd like to warn against attempts to simplify the picture, to take BRICS as kind of a unified political bloc. Even more, we have no interest to see them moving closer to each other, to create a counterweight to the EU.
So does everyone agree on BRICS? Not particularly. The expansion of BRICS Plus brings new strengths and new challenges.
The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
Egypt, with its strategic location and growing economy.
Egypt represents the balance of power amongst between the Arabs and the Israelis. Egypt is the largest Arab state. It is the most populous Arab state, and its geography makes it very significant. It controls the Suez Canal.
Ethiopia, a rising power in East Africa.
Ethiopia is a unique state in the African context. It has existed in a coherent form for more than 2 millennia, fighting off numerous foreign invasions. It has its own alphabet, a self-defined concept of nationhood, and it largely escaped European colonization. All this and more make the country stand out in the continent.
Iran, with its vast energy resources and regional influence.
Iran has shown its resilience to US pressure, and on top of a sophisticated conventional military capacity, Iran can draw upon unique strengths to inflict geopolitical stress onto the Western world.
Iran's effective control over the Strait of Hormuz has always offered it a wild card because it can always threaten to shut down that passageway, which could really bring the global economy to a standstill.
Each new member brings unique assets to the table. Indonesia, the largest economy in Southeast Asia.
This is a vision of Indonesia's apparently bright future. Nusantara, the country's new multi-billion-dollar capital city, built from scratch in the jungle. With more than 280 million people, it's the world's 4th most populous country. It has the largest Muslim population and is the world's 3rd largest democracy, behind the US and India.
And the UAE, a financial and logistics hub.
We have probably the most connected country in the world is UAE, with ports and air transport and so on. I'm very pleased that we are members of the BRICS. BRICS today is almost 40% of the population of the world, 30% of the world GDP, and 21% of
Turkey had applied, however, Turkey is already with NATO. So would those alliance conflict?
A prominent NATO nation leader at a summit of a bloc seen as a direct rival to the West, wooing the one person the West has been trying to isolate for years. Ankara has applied for BRICS membership, a group which is seen to be dominated by the West's arch rivals, Russia and China.
We believe that BRICS contributes tremendously in a unique way to the development of global trade, economic expansion, and sustainable development goals.
Internal tensions, border disputes, domestic instability, and geopolitical rivalries remain significant.
High in the Himalayas, these Indian and Chinese soldiers are clashing on either side of a makeshift border. This is just one of several skirmishes between troops in recent years that's happening here along a disputed boundary between India and China.
A huge blow to Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia. The latest round of talks with Ethiopia over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam in Kinshasa have ended in a stalemate.
Situation because Egypt is not going to be able to live that way. And they'll end up blowing up the dam. And I said it and I say it loud and clear. They'll blow up that dam.
Zelensky criticized Kazan.
What do you think about the recent BRICS summit in Russia and PM Modi saying that he's ready to work for peace at this summit?
Thank you for your question. First and foremost, I think that the BRICS summit failed. It was a failure.
Responses within BRICS vary.
We started by saying that the BRICS summit in Russia was a complete failure. Frankly, this particular subject is not the only one on which the Ukrainian president has become completely delusional.
Well, for Russia, this photo is a win, a clear signal to the West that it has failed to isolate Russia and that Russia is now at the center of a group representing around 45% of the world's population.
Possibilities range from tighter integration to fragmentation or regional bloc dominance. Leadership and global events will determine the outcome. The BRICS Plus narrative is far from settled. From its origins as a simple investment thesis to its current status as an expanded geopolitical alliance, the story continues to unfold. As we've seen, BRICS Plus faces internal divisions, external pressures, and the uncertainty of a shifting world order. But it also presents opportunities for greater economic cooperation, a stronger voice for developing nations, and a more balanced global landscape. The question is, which path will it choose? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below.